The unexpected proposition. The morning rush at Brood Awakening had finally subsided, leaving Eliza Mercer a moment to breathe as she wiped down the counter. Her chestnut hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and dark circles shadowed her intelligent hazel eyes. Evidence of another late night studying financial reports. At 26, with a master's degree in economics and crushing student debt, this wasn't where she had imagined herself. The bell above the door chimed, and Eliza's shoulders tensed instinctively. Nathaniel Blackwood entered with his usual entourage of assistants and security. At 34, the founder of Blackwood Technologies had a reputation for brilliance matched only by his ruthlessness. His tall frame was impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her annual salary. Dark hair styled with perfect precision and steel blue eyes that rarely showed emotion. The usual, "Please," he said without looking up from his phone, his deep voice carrying the casual authority of someone accustomed to immediate compliance. Eliza nodded and prepared his complicated order. A double espresso, with a specific temperature, and precisely 1 teaspoon of raw sugar. His weekly visits to this particular café puzzled the staff. A man worth billions choosing their modest establishment seemed oddly incongruent. As she placed the cup before him, Nathaniel glanced up, a sardonic smile playing on his lips. "Tell me, since you're handling my coffee so expertly, perhaps you could manage my portfolio as well?" His entourage chuckled on cue, the joke at her expense clearly a familiar routine. Instead of the expected embarrassed smile, Eliza met his gaze steadily. "I'd start by divesting from Meridian Technologies. Their new processor has critical design flaws that will tank their stock within 6 weeks." The laughter abruptly ceased. Nathaniel's eyes narrowed, truly seeing her for the first time. "And how would a barista know that?" "The same way I know your acquisition of SolarSphere last quarter was brilliant, while your CFO's push into cryptocurrency is dangerously exposed to regulatory changes in Asian markets," she replied evenly, her heart racing despite her calm exterior. A tense silence fell. Nathaniel dismissed his assistants with a subtle gesture, never taking his penetrating gaze from Eliza's face. "Who are you?" he asked, leaning forward slightly. "Eliza Mercer. Economics and Financial Analysis, Princeton. Currently serving overpriced coffee to pay off student loans." She wiped her hands on her apron, oddly unintimidated by the man who reportedly made Fortune 500 CEOs tremble. Nathaniel's fingers, long and elegant despite the strength evident in them, tapped thoughtfully against the counter. "My car will pick you up at 7 tonight. We'll discuss how someone with your obvious talents ended up here, and what might be done about it." It wasn't a request. Eliza should have been offended by his presumption, but curiosity overrode caution. "I finish at 6. I'll need an hour to change." A flash of surprise crossed his features before he nodded once decisively. "7 then. Don't make me wait." He left a $100 bill beside his barely touched coffee and strode out, his security detail scrambling to keep pace. Eliza exhaled slowly, her hands trembling slightly as she realized the magnitude of what had just happened. She had caught the attention of Nathaniel Blackwood, a man known equally for creating opportunities and destroying lives. Tonight would determine which fate awaited her. Dangerous arrangements. Nathaniel's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a gleaming skyscraper that dominated the city skyline. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a breathtaking panorama of twinkling lights below, but Eliza barely noticed the view. Her attention was fixed on the man studying her from behind an imposing glass desk. "You clean up nicely," Nathaniel observed, his eyes taking in her simple navy dress and sensible heels. Professional but not expensive, a calculated choice on her part. "Thank you for noticing," Eliza replied with a hint of irony. Her 2 arms were crossed loosely in front of her, a defensive posture she consciously relaxed. "Though I assume you didn't invite me here to discuss my wardrobe." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Direct, I appreciate that." He gestured to a chair. "Sit. Tell me how someone with your qualifications ended up making lattes." Eliza sat, smoothing her dress with fingers that showed no nail polish, just practical short nails. "The financial collapse hit while I was still in school. By graduation, firms that had promised positions were laying off experienced analysts instead of hiring new ones. That doesn't explain your insights into my business affairs." Nathaniel pressed, his blue eyes never leaving her face. "I never stopped analyzing markets. I use the cafe's Wi-Fi to research companies that interest me. She met his gaze directly. Your public moves are fascinating. Your private ones even more so. Something dangerous flickered in his expression. Most people who take too close an interest in my private business decisions don't fare well. Most people aren't offering you an opportunity to increase your net worth by 16% within 18 months. Eliza countered, her hands now resting calmly in her lap. All 5 fingers of each hand perfectly still despite her racing pulse. Nathaniel leaned back, genuine surprise replacing calculation. That's ambitious. It's conservative, actually. But I thought leading with 23% might strain credibility. His laugh was unexpected, a rich, warm sound that transformed his features. For a moment, Eliza glimpsed the man beneath the billionaire facade. You're either delusional or brilliant, he said, his tone making it clear which way he was leaning. Test me, she challenged. Give me a small portion of your portfolio to manage for 3 months. If I fail, you've lost nothing significant. If I succeed, she let the sentence hang. Nathaniel's fingers drummed once on the desk before he made a decision. 5 million. 3 months. But I want weekly reports in person. 10 million, she countered. And I have conditions, his eyebrows rose. You're negotiating with me? Any financial advisor worth hiring would. Eliza leaned forward. I need complete autonomy over the funds. No interference. And I want a contract stating that if I meet targets, you'll establish a foundation funding financial education for women from disadvantaged backgrounds. Nathaniel studied her, something like respect dawning in his eyes. You could have asked for a percentage. I'll take that too, she said with a smile that matched his for confidence. 20% of profits above benchmark. He extended his hand. 15%. And dinner once a week alongside those reports. Eliza hesitated, her 5 fingers flexing slightly before she took his hand. His grip was warm and firm, the connection sending an unexpected current between them. Deal, she said, withdrawing her hand perhaps a moment too slowly. But dinner is strictly business. Of course, Nathaniel agreed, though something in his eyes suggested he had other ideas. Welcome to Blackwood Technologies, Miss Mercer. I suspect things are about to get interesting for both of us. As she left his penthouse that evening, Eliza wondered if she had just made the smartest move of her life, or the most dangerous one. Hidden agendas. 3 weeks into their arrangement, Eliza stood in Nathaniel's home office, presenting figures that had exceeded even her projections. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows, catching the amber highlights in her hair, now worn loose around her shoulders. The renewable energy sector performed exactly as I predicted, she explained, gesturing to the holographic display with graceful movements of her hands. We've already seen a 12% return. Nathaniel watched her with undisguised admiration. Gone was the cafe uniform, replaced by a tailored charcoal pantsuit that matched his usual attire, a coincidence that hadn't escaped his notice. You've proven your point, he conceded, rising from his chair to stand beside her. I've authorized another $50 million for your management. Eliza's eyes widened. That's significantly more than we discussed. I reward excellence, he said simply. Their proximity was making it difficult for her to maintain professional composure. His scent, subtle cologne with notes of sandalwood, was distracting. Thank you for the vote of confidence, she said, taking a step back and tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. But there's something else we need to discuss. His expression cooled immediately. The Meridian acquisition? Yes. Eliza crossed her arms, her 2 legs shifting slightly as she braced herself for conflict. The due diligence reports are concerning. Their labor practices are not your concern, he interrupted. I hired you to increase profitability, not impose ethics. The two aren't mutually exclusive, she argued. Meridian's practices create significant liability. One lawsuit could erase all our gains. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. You've exceeded your mandate. Actually, protecting your investment is exactly my mandate. Her eyes flashed with determination. This isn't about ideology. It's about sustainable growth. Something shifted in his expression, surprise followed by reluctant consideration. Few people challenged Nathaniel Blackwood directly. Fewer still lived to repeat the experience. Make your case, he said finally. Dinner, tonight. The restaurant was exclusive, perched atop another skyscraper with views rivaling his penthouse. Eliza presented her analysis between courses, her brilliant mind dissecting complex financial structures with elegant precision. So you see, she concluded as dessert arrived, reforming their practices actually increases long-term value while mitigating betrayal and truth. The numbers don't add up. Eliza pushed her chair away from the desk in frustration, rubbing her tired eyes with both hands. For weeks she'd been untangling Nathaniel's financial empire, discovering layers of complexity that seemed designed to obscure rather than clarify. Their relationship had evolved into something neither had anticipated: professional respect, layered with deepening personal connection. Their weekly dinners had become nightly, often ending with passionate embraces and reluctant goodbyes. Nathaniel had never brought anyone into his private world before, yet found himself increasingly unable to imagine it without her. "You should rest," he said, coming up behind her and placing his hands on her shoulders, his strong fingers kneading the tension from her muscles. "Something's wrong with the Singapore accounts," she persisted, leaning into his touch despite her concern. "There's a pattern of—" A sharp knock interrupted them. Victor Chen, Nathaniel's chief operating officer and oldest friend, entered without waiting for a response. His expression darkened seeing them together, Nathaniel's hand still on Eliza's shoulders. "The board meeting is in 10 minutes, Victor reminded them coldly. Perhaps Ms. Mercer could use that time to prepare herself properly. The implied criticism wasn't subtle. Victor had made his disapproval of their relationship clear, though always carefully masked when addressing Nathaniel directly. "We'll be right there," Nathaniel replied, his tone making it clear he'd noticed the disrespect. When Victor left, he pressed a kiss to the top of Eliza's head. "Ignore him. The old guard's always resistant to change." "It's not just that," Eliza said, turning to face him. "Victor's signature is on all the irregular transactions I've found." Nathaniel's expression hardened. "That's a serious accusation. I wouldn't make it without evidence." She reached for a tablet, fingers swiping through documents. "Look at these transfers. Every major discrepancy leads back to him." Before Nathaniel could respond, alarms blared throughout the building. The security system's automated voice announced a breach on multiple floors. "Stay here," Nathaniel ordered, moving swiftly to a panel in the wall that revealed a handgun. "This office is secure. What's happening?" Eliza asked, her heart pounding as she stood, hands gripping the edge of the desk for support. "I don't know, but—" His phone buzzed with an incoming message. The color drained from his face as he read it. "What is it?" she pressed. "Photos of us. Financial data from my private servers. Someone's threatening to release everything unless I transfer majority control of the company to Victor." His voice was deadly calm, the calm of a man accustomed to crisis. Understanding dawned in Eliza's eyes. "The security breach is a distraction. Victor's making his move. And using you as leverage," Nathaniel confirmed grimly. "He knows I—" He stopped, something vulnerable crossing his features. "He knows what?" Eliza asked softly. Instead of answering, Nathaniel crossed the room and took her face between his hands. "I've never let anyone matter to me before. It's always been a weakness I couldn't afford. And now," she whispered, "now I find I can't afford to lose you." His kiss was fierce, desperate, conveying everything he couldn't say. When they separated, both breathless, Eliza's eyes were bright with determination. "We won't let him win. I found his trail. I can prove he's been embezzling for years." A new respect dawned in Nathaniel's expression. "You already prepared for this," she smiled, a predator's smile that matched his own. "I learned from the best. Never enter a negotiation without leverage." As they prepared to confront Victor together, Nathaniel realized Eliza had transformed, not just his business but himself, from a man who stood alone against the world to one who had found a true partner in every sense. Fortunes reimagined. Sunlight streamed through the windows of Blackwood Tower's boardroom as Eliza concluded her presentation. The assembled board members sat in stunned silence, absorbing the comprehensive changes she'd outlined for the company's future. "The Mercer Initiative isn't just about ethics," she emphasized, her confident voice carrying throughout the room. "It's about sustainable growth and market leadership for decades to come." From his position at the head of the table, Nathaniel watched with undisguised pride. 6 months had transformed everything: his company, his outlook, his heart. After Victor's attempted coup had failed, spectacularly thanks to Eliza's meticulous, documentation of his embezzlement. They'd seize the opportunity to restructure Blackwood Technologies from the ground up. Victor now faced federal charges, his betrayal having inadvertently created the perfect opening for the changes Eliza had envisioned. The Foundation's financial literacy programs have already reached 10,000 women. Eliza continued, creating a pipeline of diverse talent for our expanding operations. The board members nodded approvingly. Initial skepticism had given way to enthusiastic support, as Eliza's initiatives delivered exactly what she'd promised: ethical practices paired with unprecedented growth. "Thank you, Ms. Mercer," Nathaniel said formally as she concluded. "The board will take a brief recess before voting." As the others filed out, he remained seated, watching her gather her materials. Her presence in his life had become essential, her brilliant mind and compassionate heart balancing his ruthless drive in ways he'd never anticipated. "You were magnificent," he told her when they were alone. "We were magnificent," she corrected, coming to stand beside his chair. "This is our vision, Nathaniel. I couldn't have implemented it without your willingness to change." He took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "I have one more proposal before the board returns." "Another acquisition?" she asked, her free hand resting comfortably on his shoulder. "A merger, actually." Nathaniel stood, maintaining his hold on her hand as he reached into his pocket with his other hand. "The most important one of my life." Understanding dawned in Eliza's eyes as he produced a small velvet box. "Nathaniel, 1 year ago you were serving me coffee," he said, his voice unusually soft. "Today you're serving me a future I never imagined possible." He opened the box to reveal a stunning emerald ring. "Marry me, Eliza. Be my partner in everything." Tears glistened in her eyes as she looked from the ring to the man holding it, the ruthless billionaire who had learned to balance power with compassion, largely through her influence. "You realize this means I'll challenge you forever," she warned, her smile belying the seriousness of her words. "I'll never stop pushing you to be better. I'm counting on it." His blue eyes held nothing but certainty. "You changed everything when you dared to stand up to me. I need that. I need you, for all the days to come." Her answer was in her kiss, her arms wrapping around his neck as his encircled her waist, lifting her slightly off the ground in his enthusiasm. Later that evening, they stood on the balcony of what was now their penthouse, the city spread before them like a carpet of lights. Eliza leaned back against Nathaniel's chest, his arms wrapped securely around her, her emerald ring catching the moonlight. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when you walked into that café?" she asked, tilting her head to look up at him. "Never," he admitted, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I was a man who thought he had everything until a café girl showed me what I was missing." "And what was that?" she asked softly. "Purpose beyond profit, the courage to change." His arms tightened around her. "And love. Most importantly, love." As they stood together under the stars, both knew their greatest fortune wasn't measured in billions, but in the unlikely partnership that had transformed them both. A partnership that had begun with a bold reply and would continue reshaping their world for years to come.